Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I'm the actor.
My name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh.
All right.
So hold
cuts.
on. Yes, but I've got some news.
Oh, yeah. What's up?
Can you guess?
Are you in a play?
I am. I just got cast
awesome.
I just got cast last night in another play.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So cool.
I was like as much excited about telling you as I was about getting cast. It was weird. It was a weird emotion. I can't say much about it right now. Nothing officially has been announced, but I do want to tell you really quickly as I can, how it all came to be. So I went to a party on New Year's Eve, just kind of like a low-key party, and didn't drink or nothing. And I was sitting there talking to this woman, Heather. And we had met before, but she didn't really remember me. So I was kind of like giving her a hard time about, oh, I stalked you on Facebook. I know you're married to Les, and I know you're a part of this theater company, but whatever. I mean, okay, I'm not impressionable, whatever. Well, anyway, we just had one of those like 4-hour conversations. And then it proceeded into Facebook and so forth and so on. And she said, hey, by the way, or like 2 days later, a friend of mine is looking for a person to play a 40 to 50-year-old blah, blah, blah in this play. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. And apparently when this lady called her and said, I think 2 people were cast and they fell out and something. I need this and this and this and this. And her husband kind of fits all those categories, and he's an actor too, but he's super busy. So she was like, you need Paul James. And for a split second, she was like, I didn't even recommend my husband. Just like Paul James's name came out.
Oh,
which,
wow.
you know, yeah. And then like 2 days later, which would be yesterday, I went and auditioned, and I finally got to do this monologue that I've been working on through COVID. And, you know, win, lose, or draw, sure. Do I want to be in a play? Absolutely. Do I want a good part in the play? Absolutely. Did I want this part in the play? Absolutely. Because I read it and I was like, oh, it's just good. And it's a great part. But I really want to get this monologue out. I want to say it in front of people. So win, lose, or draw, whatever happened, I at least had that experience. Monologue was okay. The reading was better when I read with the actress, and they were very enthusiastic. I'm very enthusiastic. So yeah, I'm doing another play.
Oh, that's so cool. So
yes.
What's the like timeline for this play then? Like when's opening night?
I believe March 2nd.
Okay.
So we've got some time. Official rehearsals don't start until January 22nd. And I already have the script, and I'm spending 2 hours a day on it. I spend an hour before the podcast, and I spend an hour afterwards because I got a pretty early morning tomorrow. And see what I can get done and kind of get in me before, because it takes me a little while. So, yeah. But yeah, I need it. So cool. I need it. I
have so many questions because I don't know if I've like, I know you've had multiple plays since we've done the podcast that you've been a part of, but at this exact moment where you like just found out, I don't know if we've actually talked at this exact moment in your process. So at this point, you're just like, are you just like getting the words down? You're just like reading through and trying to like form the words and trying to figure out like what the character's doing? Or are you just like literally reading each of the words and like is it very clinical at this point, or is it like really trying to figure out motivations and all that stuff?
Yes, and yes. I wish it was just clinical for me. I wish I could just learn the words and then put it up on its feet and then the words are there, but it never works like that for me. I always am like, like if I'm learning a line and it's monotone, it bothers me. So then I have to rework it in my head because now things change and per rehearsals and with other people and all that other stuff. But I was thinking about this last night. Plays are different than movies in a lot of respects, but there is a pacing and a tone and a cadence, a rhythm to a play that only happens that night in front of the audience. And so it's a little bit more heightened and it's a little less, not a little less, I mean, it's always believable, hopefully. But so it's a little bit of all of that. I really don't know my process when it comes to learning lines. I have a little bit of a freak out moment last night where I was like, what if I can't? What if I don't? What if I should? And then I was like, you know what? Enough. I'm tired of that. Enough. I will do what I can do, and I will learn the way that I can learn. A lot of times the action helps me remember. So if I'm supposed to go downstage left and pick up something, then I know I'm supposed to say this before that, this after that, this in the middle of that. And ironically, when I did that show Perfect Arrangement in North Carolina, the very first rehearsal, the director's like, well, I know a lot of actors like to learn their lines by blocking, but we're not doing any blocking for about 2 weeks. And we literally stood in a circle or sat in a circle. When you were in the scene, you jumped up and you read it, and then you sat back down when you weren't in the scene. Did no blocking, nothing. It was really hard, but it's repetition for me.
Yeah.
Repetition for me.
So at this point, but you don't have any blocking, obviously. So you're
no.
But are they? Do most play directors expect you to be like off book when you get to that portion, like the blocking portion of the?
No.
Okay.
No.
Right.
No. You're usually off book at a certain period. Like it's usually a 6-week period of time of rehearsal, and probably about a week, maybe a week and a half before technical rehearsal, which is usually a week before the show goes up, or the weekend before the weekend of the show. When the show goes up, usually you're supposed to be off book, which is really great because you have a certain amount of time, but not great if you're not. So if you're like 2 weeks away from opening night, you don't know your lines. It's like, but I trick myself. And I know that this is, I try not to give myself a way out. I try to learn every line word perfect. They never come out word perfect. Yeah. I mean, they have, but there is an opportunity for it to not happen.
Yeah.
So I just try to make sure I know what to say before the beginning and the end of the line, so I don't mess them up. But a lot of things come with emotions. A lot of things come with action and emotion. So if you're like frustrated, it's a lot easier to, stop, because you're trying to get them to stop making you mad. So, it's a good question. I don't necessarily have a process that works consistently for me. I did work with a lady who had these great techniques, and apparently it's an actual technique. You can buy a book on it. And she would do things like, okay, in the line before, her line says, I know, and then your line says, you know. So you know that you know because she knows.
So it's like her line is leading you into your line.
Correct. Okay. And that her line has 2 M's in it, and then you have to say moment in your line. So you go, 2 M's, moment, 2 M's in that word, connect. Wow. Yeah. That totally worked.
That's good, because it sounds to me like I would get all like, because that sounds like one of those like, I made an easy mnemonic device where it's just nonsensical words one after the other, and somehow that works for people, but there's probably better ways to. I think, like you said, once you get closer to opening night, like contextually, you'll kind of know what your character is gonna be going through at that time. So by that time, it's gonna be a little bit more natural. So that's so cool, though.
Well, thank you. We'll wrap it up with this. So normally, whenever I get a script, I'll go right to whatever character they want me to read for, and I'll read about them, or I'll read them. This time, I actually read the whole script, so I had an idea of what was going on, and then went back and reread a couple of the scenes. It's so funny because every single time, I'm not even kidding you, the one scene that I kind of don't really focus on is always the scene that we end up reading. But in a way that's kind of good, because it's supposed to be as if you're talking to somebody for the first time. These words are coming out of your mouth for the first time. So I have learned some tricks, and that helped me. Totally work for me.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing a David Mamet play, you're screwed, because it's very specific, and this is too. But I will tell you this, the playwright, Samuel Hunter, who wrote the play I'm getting ready to do, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be telling you this, but I will. He wrote The Whale. He wrote the play and then the screenplay.
Okay.
So,
wow. Yeah. Which is one of the movies that you saw over this period of time. So we are going to talk about a bunch of different movies, hopefully like somewhat rapid fire, and we've kind of diverted over the last few weeks as far as like what you've seen and what I've seen, but there are a couple of movies that we've each seen, and so we should probably start with those. First, Glass Onion, that came out on Netflix on Christmas, I think, or Christmas Eve or whatever. So that was a movie that we were visiting my family for Christmas, and so I watched it with my family. And so, and then Seth and I have watched it again. We decided to watch it like later at night. So it was an interesting experience for me, because I kind of fell asleep in the middle, not because of the movie, just because I was very, very tired, and it was like midnight. And so it got real weird for me at the end. But as I went back and watched it again, like the movie, it's classic Rian Johnson, not just Knives Out, but most Rian Johnson movies, when you watch them multiple times, you pick up on so many more things. And he builds his films with complex narrative structures and gimmicks to a certain extent. And then also he layers them so that as you get, speaking of Glass Onion, so that as you get farther into the film and as you watch it more and more and more, you learn more and more and more about whatever it is, the concept or the characters or the characters' motivations or whatever it is, they become more apparent to you. And so that's what I love about all of Rian Johnson's movies, Last Jedi included. And so, I thought this was a really fun movie. What'd you think?
Well, of course, being hyperbolic Paul, I want to say it's probably my favorite movie of the year so far. Will it stay my favorite movie of the year? I don't know, but it would be a lot of fun to have two Rian Johnson's films as number one favorite movies of the year. Because, of course, The Last Jedi was. It's complex, but yet easy to follow. The characters are real. They're etched out. They're great. Kate Hudson said something interesting. I saw an interview with her on Actors on Actors, I think. And she said that when she read it, she was like, I have to call him because I know how she walks. And I was like, that is such an actor thing to say. Like, she just knew how this character walked. And then when you see her at 40 something years of age, after having 3 children, walking across the pool in that one shot, you're like, first of all, good for you, Kate. You look fantastic. Second of all, she's walking in character. I was fascinated by that. Like I said, it's complex, but yet easy to understand. I'm not a big whodunit person, but I am trying to figure it out as I'm going along. The performances are so stunning. You don't really know what's happening until you know what's happening. And then he does this really cool trick without giving too much away, where if you miss something, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because you'll be able to figure it out later on. And then the last thing I'll say, which I hope builds anticipation for people who haven't seen it, because it really is super clever. I texted you, Glass Onion. No, that's a movie. Because we were going back and forth about something. I was like, no, Glass Onion, that's a movie. And then I also said Watertight. I've been the next couple of days I was trying to poke holes into it. Well, oh no, that's there. Well, what about this? No, that's there. What about this? And I'd only seen it one time. I will say this: if he's going to continue on with the Daniel Craig character, Benoit Blanc, then how is it going to get bigger than this one? So we'll leave it at that. But this one's pretty big, and it's big. It makes a big, bold choice,
But it's right down the line with Knives Out. I think that it's, as far as like whether it's subject matter that it kind of takes on, and then also the complexity of the plot, but at the same time, it assumes that nobody is gonna really figure it out. Although there are things on screen that will allow someone to recognize something that's just not exactly right, and they can either determine to bank that, or I think maybe us as moviegoers, sometimes we, especially with older movies, I think you kind of get used to forgiving goofs or gaffes. Even on like IMDb, it's like, well, here's some goofs that happened. Like they drank water and then their glass was half full, and then the next shot their glass was full, and it's like
with coffee.
Yeah. So it's that kind of a thing where you're just like, oh well, they just messed up and it just took from different takes and no big deal. But this movie is very intentional, and there's nothing that's not purposeful, and that's, I mean, for a good reason. He takes a lot of care with his films, Rian Johnson does, and he's tried to kind of like, figure all the little holes out and then make sure that there aren't any. But then at the same time, like, I don't think a lot like the films that were made from Agatha Christie stories, or even Agatha Christie stories, they don't necessarily assume that everybody's going to figure it out by the end. It's not necessarily an Encyclopedia Brown type thing where there's a complete formula and you're going to follow that formula, and or like a Law and Order episode or something. Oh, look, the guy who was on the docks, who they interviewed once, who didn't say much, it turns out he's the bad guy. Well, okay, it's like, great. But
almost purposely not allowing you to figure it out.
Yeah. So I think this movie and then also Knives Out, it forces you into I guess it allows you to conform to its storytelling, but it doesn't make you feel like an idiot for not figuring it out, I think. And then it also gives you a complete story that, like you said, doesn't really have any holes. I know people have tried to like poke holes into it, and I think that there's ways that you can say like, why would this person do that? And then but it's not a logical fallacy. It's more of like a behavioral thing that you could wave away with like, well, they're just that kind of a person. But there's, every time you watch it, every time I've watched it, because I think we started it a third time. So, we have kind of like picked up on little things since then. And then also listening to Ryan Johnson speak on that Hollywood Reporter Writers Roundtable, which was mostly writer directors and Tony Kushner. And he was talking about how as they were getting close to shooting the film, Daniel Craig called him up and was like, hey, I think that there may be a hole here. And so they were able to move some stuff around and kind of correct for that hole. But even somebody who's spent however long, a year or something writing this thing and crafting it can still have have holes that need to be taken care of. But luckily they were able to find that before the end. So that made me, the next time I watched it, want to figure out like, is
where
there
that
some
possible
sort of
hole?
Yeah, is
right.
there like a line that they added?
Yeah.
And they're like, I think I might have a couple ideas, but I don't want to give anything away. So I think there might have been like a quick line that they added to just be like, okay, that explains
That's covered.
This. But
yes.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I had a lot of fun. But you're right.
Keep giving him money, and the cast is. I almost said stellar and cast together there. The cast is stellar, and Kathryn Hahn is very quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses in movies of all time. I have never been let down by her, not once, not ever.
Yeah, I mean,
she is. Go ahead.
You just go back to Step Brothers. Like I knew from that movie that she is. You put her in anything and she'll be fine. It would be interesting to see if she's been in anything that's like super serious, because I think she could pull it off. Like I think she could be a serious actor. But
well, I guess it depends on how you gauge that. There are things that she's super serious in, but is farcical in nature. This is where I leave you. She's got a pretty serious character, but she has to do farcical things because for whatever reason, the writer-director decided to rely on the farcical moments instead of just, which I think maybe is why people don't really take to that movie, because some of those moments might not work for them. But she has a fairly serious moment in that movie. So there is proof, and she's done quite a few things where she's not who you think she comes across. She's not. And then
recently,
if she could,
too.
Yeah, and if you take the Bad Mom series or the two of them so far, that's not. I mean, we could see her doing that character, but that's not anywhere in her resume up to that point, so she can do different things. Yeah, the cast is stellar for Glass Onion. I say give him as much money as he wants, and he can do as many as he wants for as long as he wants, because if he keeps making them as interesting as the last one, we're good to go. Because I think this one is even possibly more interesting on some level. I can't put my finger on why I said that or why I think that, but I do think that on some level.
I think he's going for more like as far as talking about influencers and also the comparisons that everybody are giving to Elon Musk, the Edward Norton character.
It's supposed to be on purpose, though.
But in general, it's not even Elon Musk. It's like an amalgamation of Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, all of these different, billionaire, Jeff Bezos, different billionaire, that type of an attitude and that type of a setup. And it's fine. It doesn't bother me, but it's at the same time, I'm just kind of like, I'm more interested in the complexities of the story than I am in any kind of like, statement or whatever that he's trying to make. See, now he made a statement in Knives Out too, but it felt like it was a little bit more couched inside of the story instead of more overarching over and across the whole the whole movie. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I kind of lean more towards Knives Out if we're having to choose between the two. And he will make at least another one. I think he got Netflix backed up the truck and dumped a bunch of money on him for 2 movies and potentially more. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't make more if or even extend the theatrical release for the next one, because the 1 week that it was in the theaters, it made a good chunk of money considering how many screens it was in. So that bodes well for, at the very least, his movies in the theater. Because his next one's definitely going to be a Knives Out movie, and it's definitely going to be on Netflix. So I did just see a trailer for, it was a TV show with Natasha Lyonne, who was one of the one of the people in Knives Out in the little Among Us game, and then it's called, I can't remember what it's. It is called, it's a Peacock original show, but and I'm trying to say Poker Face. That's what it's called. So she plays, and Rian Johnson wrote it at the very least, and maybe has directed the pilot episode or something. But she plays someone who is able to tell when somebody's lying. She's like a human lie detector. So then she gets into all kinds of nefarious things based on that. So yeah, it should be interesting. All right, so The Menu. That's the other movie that we both saw. I understand what it was going for, but it as the movie got farther and farther along, I was just like, you're losing me. And it's got some great actors in it. I feel like they were misused or not used. I feel like they were not used. So what do you think?
Well, I think any movie that has Anna Taylor-Joy, Ralph Fiennes, and Judith Light in it, I'm good.
Put Judith. Yeah.
Oh, I think. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm hoping you haven't seen it. I'm hoping she is a surprise Oscar nomination for The Whale. And I didn't realize she was the woman from Downsizing until I looked her up. And I even think that her performance in The Menu could catapult her into contention because people will see such a drastic difference. It's like I meant to mention during the Banshees of Inisherin that Colin Farrell probably will be nominated, but technically speaking, I personally think, him as the Penguin is a really good character. So I don't know if anybody would take him seriously as an Oscar nominee for something like that. But if you watch the Banshees and then you watch Batman, you're like, that's not the same person because of the makeup, but nothing else about that is the same person. So it's the same thing.
He's playing a comic book villain. I mean, like, do you lean into that or do you like back away from that? It's like Jack Nicholson playing the Joker leaned into it, and it's an iconic performance.
Leaned into it. Colin Farrell leans into it and then holds. Because I think they're two different films. And I think Jack could do what he did because he's Jack, first of all. And second of all, is Tim Burton going to tell him no? And also, this is kind of the first film version of this character per se. So, give Jack freedom. But Colin seems to be a little bit more hunkered down in reality. I believe that character could walk off the screen. And I've seen that character in real life. I've seen that guy up in New York. I've seen that guy. So, do I think Jack Nicholson's Joker could walk off the screen? Maybe not, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that Hung Cho, is that her name?
Hung Cho. Yeah.
Hung Cho.
Oh, no, Hung Chow. Yeah.
Hung Chow, thank you. I knew I was going to get it wrong. Hung Chow is scary brilliant in The Menu. Scary, and not just because her character, the stillness that she brings to that character, scary. As for what you said in the beginning of the discussion, I think I agree with you. I think that I see what they were going for. I get it. I get the commentary. I get I love the fact that people are talking about this foodie world that we live in now, and that the pretentiousness that comes with that, and that he says, "You've killed my joy for cooking." I get that. I get intimidated when I go into those kind of restaurants. I've only been in a few, but I don't feel comfortable. I actually get a little bit of anxiety ridden, so I can't really enjoy the food, although I have friends in that world and they've walked me through it. And a couple glasses of wine, you're fine. But I don't want to be in that world. I don't want to be like the Nicholas Hoult character and know stuff like that. I like people who really know their stuff about whatever turns them on. I think that's really cool. But I knew going into it, something not good was going to happen to him, because he's
the trailer
irritating. Well, I never saw the trailer.
Oh, good. Wow. Nice.
I knew about the movie and I knew who was in the movie, but I didn't. So was it worth watching? Yes. Was it completely successful? Maybe not, but I think I will lean into the fact that bold choices always work for me. And there is bold choice after bold choice, and then it gets bolder and bolder and bolder. And they do exactly like we talked about with Banshees. Yet another reference. A character says he's going to do what he's going to do, and he does it.
Yeah.
And pretty soon after they start eating, what is going to happen, and you're just waiting for it to not happen. Because normally in movies with people like Academy Award nominee Janet McTeer and all these famous people, they're not going to die. And I'm not saying they do die or not die. I'm not going to give that away. I'm just saying the movie goes exactly where it says it's going to go. That I like. I feel like when they went to film it, what they originally wrote and what they ended up filming might be not two entirely different things, but enough of a difference to where the movie they thought they were making might not be the movie that they got. That said, I recommend it. I think people should see it. It's crazy. You have to be in the right mood. Do not watch it if you're in a bad mood or if you're mad at the world, because it could trigger you.
Well, I think so. For me, like when I got to the end of the movie, like I started trying to started trying to figure out, like trying to isolate, like what were the pain points for me by the end of the movie. And I would compare this like I was starting to compare in my head this movie to Midsommar, and I felt like this was a movie that had a bold statement and a bold reason for existing, and so did Midsommar. And I felt like Midsommar was a lot more complete and was a lot more. It felt like the hand on the film was a lot more confident, and it felt like this movie had this confident hand for a certain amount of time, and then it started getting like the sand started getting really slippery, and we start sinking a little bit more and getting bogged down, and by the end it just didn't feel like it hit with the same intensity. The last scenes didn't hit with the same intensity as the last scenes of Midsommar. Now I do have to say that the technical filmmaking of the director Mark Mylod and his crew, it is solid. Now I think he's one of the directors of Succession. Yes, so he's one of the directors of Succession. He's done Game of Thrones, so like he's a solid director. But the way that he shot the food, specifically the preparation of the food, and just like all of that, like, is beautiful. Oh my gosh. And some of the shots that they got, especially at the end, are, just like very well done, good craft. But, without the heart in the middle of it, it felt like it just felt like it was lacking something. So, which is too bad, because you get all these people together. And also they shot in Savannah, Georgia, and they did a lot of those like shots coming into the island on Driftwood Beach, which Steph and I just went to like 6 months ago. Yeah. So we went on vacation down there, and Steph, we were watching it, and Steph's like, that's Driftwood Beach. And I was like, no. And then I looked it up. Sure enough, they shot exactly where we were. 6 months ago. So I don't know.
I don't know if that's really well shot, or you just have a very observant wife. I'm leaning towards very observant wife.
Both. She was like, Well, 'cause I was like, no, there's got to be other places that, that look like that. And it's like, no, pretty much like that place. Also, it's in Georgia, and Georgia has a lot of incentives for making films in Georgia, which is why all the Marvel movies are made there. And, Tyler Perry has his whole studios set up there. And so, I mean, it's I understand why they shot in Georgia, but at the same time, they were able to take advantage of the beauty and the the surroundings in that area, like all that stuff, like the entryway to the restaurant, all that stuff. I mean, that was all shot in Georgia, so it's pretty nice. So
can you imagine going out shopping in Georgia and see Judith Light walking down the?
I know, right?
You'd be like, what the hell is she doing in Georgia?
Especially in like Savannah, it's like, hey, who's the boss? What are you doing here? Do you think people just call her "Who's the boss"?
No, she has a damn Tony now. Stop. Maybe. I mean, she probably loves it too. Yeah. She's as remembered for her daytime soap opera character that won her daytime Emmy as she is for her nighttime character. And also, before I forget, Reed Birney is in this, one of the gentlemen in Mass. So I say go see the menu. If it doesn't do it for you, follow those actors and see some of their movies. Yeah, you can pick anything Janet McTeer does and you'll be fine. You pick anything Judith Light does, you'll be fine. Yeah, pretty much all of them. But Reed Birney,
John Leguizamo.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, Nicholas Hoult, we didn't talk about. I mean, we did kind of talk about his character a bit. Yeah. So no, I mean it's a stacked cast, but yeah, it's oh man.
It's the ensemble cast of the year. Everybody is in an ensemble big piece. So
Glass Onion too. All right, so now we have to divert and go into movies that you've seen and I haven't seen, or vice versa. So what else have you seen?
Well, I've already mentioned that I saw The Whale, or I mentioned that the playwright of the play I'm doing, I love saying that, wrote The Whale, and I saw it, and I won't say much. I will say I had a cathartic experience. It made me feel all the feelings. I will say this, I'm not exactly sure why everybody's bashing on the screenplay as much as they are. I don't know if it's the screenplay as much as it's Darren Aronofsky. Where is his aesthetic? Well, I mean, you watch him do all of these movies, Mother, and then you think, and we've talked about this before, could he do a romantic comedy? I can't think of Lynch. David Lynch. Could David Lynch do a romantic comedy? And then David Lynch does a romantic comedy, or he does the straight story about a man who travels across the country on a riding lawnmower. People are like, where's his aesthetic?
Are they saying that it's not, that it doesn't look like a Darren Aronofsky movie, or it doesn't feel like a Darren Aronofsky movie? Is that what they're saying?
I think that they're having some issue, and I get it, that it's one room. It was a play first, but I think that works better. That we've talked about this before, that sometimes you get caught in that and you can't get out of it, but this seems to have purpose. So I'm not sure what they're saying, because I've read quite a few different reviews and they keep saying the thing about Aronofsky's aesthetic and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what exactly did you want to happen in the middle of this basically leaving Las Vegas movie? Yeah. What did you want to happen? The walls ooze green foam? I mean, what did you want? Yeah. I don't get it. So I everything that's coming, Brendan Fraser's, and it's Fraser, not Fraser. I've been looking it up. And
he also said that to Adam Sandler.
Yes, he did. Yes, he's so nice to hear it the right way. Did you hear him when he said that? He's like, it's so nice to hear it pronounced correctly. And everybody's doing better at it. But everything that's coming his way, he will deserve. So we'll just leave it at that. It's definitely something, obviously, if we do the Oscar hunt like we do every year, you will see it. It has something about it. It has something.
And that's where I kind of am like, I'm somewhat dreading seeing the movie, because I'm hoping that it's not this is a difficult character because of his physical situation. This is a deep vein to mine, the emotional impact of what this character is going through, and how this character is affecting other characters around him, that kind of a thing, where you just get to a certain point where you're like, do I want to see puppies being tortured? No. And so I'm hoping that from what you've said, and I'm hoping that there's more to it than just, just sadness, just for no good reason. So I hope there's more to it than that. So, okay. Ooh, yeah. See, you're not helping me there. Okay. That's tough. See, I don't know. I'm telling you. Okay. Well,
let's put it this way. The conflicts in the film are not just based on his weight.
okay.
There are conflicts in the film because of his weight, and then there's conflicts in the film because of his character choices.
Okay.
And
that makes me feel better because it's not reducing a character to a single element of
it's not
a human. Yeah.
It's not. And I think you should see it because I can't wait to tell you what I wanted to tell you right now.
Okay.
Because there's something in there that's, I think, going to make it okay for you to watch. I think it's going to make it okay for you to go through the journey. And I'm interested to see what you think of the narrative. And I'm interested to see if you think it works. And I'm interested in seeing if this aesthetic is that big of a deal. You know what I mean? I don't think that... I love the fact that you can't tell it's Aronofsky by the tone of the film. I love that. So,
at some point, we talk about these filmmakers all the time, but at some point, like you're not going to be able to just be like, look at a single frame and be like, oh, that's a PTA movie, that's a Spielberg movie, that's a Kubrick movie. I mean, certain frames you may be able to, but what I'm getting at is like you're not going to be able to define, like if all Darren Aronofsky is quick cut montage guy, then no, that's just because he did it in Requiem for a Dream and in Pi, like no, that shouldn't be the one thing that defines. Hopefully he's done enough since those films to separate himself from them and to be more than just fill in the blank here, quick cut montage guy, or difficult subject matter guy or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like that he's made enough movies, good or bad, that he's hopefully been able to separate himself. I mean, look at, initially were people saying like The Wrestler is an Aronofsky film, like because the camera follows behind the actor, and that's what he does in The Black Swan, and that's what he does in Pi, and
yeah.
So I mean, like, so wait, the character wasn't able to follow behind Brendan Fraser in this film, therefore it's not a Darren Aronofsky film? No, you can't do that.
Well, all of those things you said about Aronofsky are 100% true. He is the quick cut montage guy in all of those films you just mentioned,
but not in Mother.
Well,
I don't remember any like super quick cuts. I remember long takes. I remember. Yeah, I remember tense music. I remember that kind of stuff. But I don't want to go back and watch Mother again. But I don't feel like that's necessarily like the only thing that defines him. Hopefully,
I personally think this, and we can go on from this. If you were to say, "Oh, I love that guy who's that quick cut montage guy. Oh, he did this movie, The Whale. Oh, wow, I didn't know he did that. That's neat that he could do something completely different." Instead of, "Oh, wait, where is all that stuff that I'm used to?" Mm-hmm. That is the audience's problem. But we'll see once you watch it, if and when you watch it, because you know he's getting nominated for the Oscar. Yeah. And
well, Brendan Fraser's getting nominated. You think Aronofsky's going to get nominated?
No.
Okay.
But I say no all the time, and I've been wrong. I've been wrong quite a few times. So what do I know?
Hey, but you've been right a lot. So especially last year.
And some weird ass stuff too, like that. Right. I'll just say.
Well, speaking of Hollywood and people who like Hollywood, Babylon is one of the movies that I saw I saw it last week.
I've seen it too.
You did?
I did. Oh, we talked about it.
We're doing an episode.
I love how much you remember what we talk about. We've talked about it,
Okay,
am I that unimportant to you?
Before I saw it, then that's where I was.
Whatever. You don't love me. I don't want to talk to you anymore. No, I saw it on Christmas Day.
All right. Okay.
Can you imagine? Merry Christmas.
See, but I was on vacation. That's why.
But can you imagine that being your Christmas Day movie?
No.
Right. Glass Onion is a Christmas movie.
That's a Christmas movie. That's a family
Avatar.
movie. That's even
Avatar.
though it's not a family movie, but it's
right.
a family
Avatar is a Christmas movie, which we saw the next day, and we were like, yeah, Christmas is today. Because
movie. Just skip that other day. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we should do an episode on Babylon. I would totally do an episode of Babylon. Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, you don't even remember we were planning on doing an episode, but you hadn't seen it yet.
Oh, jeez.
You don't love
That's
me.
bad. I'll cut this out.
Yeah, you're fake. You're superficial.
I do.
You just need me for my charm.
I did bring up the bear, and we've kind of already gone past the menu, but I have kind of like circled around some like food based or food adjacent film / shows, and the bear is really well done. Everything that everybody says about the bear is right. It's just give in to the bear. It does a lot. It does a lot for you. It's definitely my vibe, where it gives you that same kind of especially early on, there's huge long scenes of just intensity, and because you're in a kitchen, like you did food service at all? Did you do food service at all?
Hi, my name's Paul James. It's nice to meet you. What's your name? I mean, do you know?
You worked at California Pizza Kitchen.
Yeah, like 25 years ago.
But I knew that though.
Yeah. What, did you write it down and you just saw a note or something?
No, I know.
It's like you have posted notes around your computer. Try to remember what Paul is about. Try to act like I am friendly to him.
I had to pull the file folder. Yeah.
Try to act like I am his friend. Yes, I've worked in food service over 35 years.
So for me, it's not as it doesn't give me like, flashbacks. So because I haven't worked in food service like that, but he's got a sandwich shop, and so that's the kind of part of the backstory. There's other parts of the backstory. I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but it's a very quick 8 episode. They're like 30 minutes long. You can finish it in a couple of days. It's great. So like I said, don't want to say too much, but great performances all around. Everybody's so grounded in their characters, and it's super realistic, and it's shot very well too. It's very gritty, but purposefully gritty. So yeah, you should definitely check it out. And then along with those other kind of food things, I watched Triangle of Sadness, which is, I'd say, food adjacent. But have you seen Triangle of Sadness? See,
I have not.
I'm not going to get in trouble again.
I have not.
So that's Ruben.
No, you would have been in trouble again if I had seen it and you had forgotten. No matter how you asked about it, if you had forgotten that I had seen it, whatever. I'm more invested in you than you are in me. Whatever.
Okay.
Triangle of Sadness. No, but you keep talking about seeing this movie or trying to see this movie, right? And then is this
I tried
the one?
to see it in the theater, but it went away, and now it's available to rent. So I just paid the $6 to rent it.
I don't need posted notes.
Jeez. Okay. Well, your mind is a steel trap. So Ruben Östlund directed and wrote this movie. It won the Palme d'Or in 2022. So I was excited to see it, and it kind of lived up. It mostly lived up to what I expected, and it's like the end definitely redeems a lot of the third act for me, but and I also feel like it's trying to be a little too too overt with its message. So there's and it's in, if you've seen the trailer, there's 2 characters in the trailer, Woody Harrelson and this
I have seen the trailer.
He's the captain, and then there's this like Russian rich dude on this yacht, and the captain of the yacht is Woody Harrelson, and they kind of go back and forth, and it's I am not a learned person. Like, I don't have like all of these like quotes like in my back pocket that I just have memorized as far as when it comes to Marxism or capitalism. But most of the quotes that they used in this film to like kind of as their like back and forth, they have a back and forth discussion about capitalism versus communism or anti-capitalism. And so their kind of back and forth that they have was quoting on both sides, quotes that I've heard before. So they're more like in the at least American consciousness and in consciousness of somebody who like I said, I don't read like a bunch of political books every year, and I don't have like all of these like this like deep, rich political history, but I've heard these things. So I kind of feel like in a movie like this, I was expecting to like either him to dig even deeper, or maybe, I don't know, as I'm explaining all of this or talking about all this, I feel like maybe it's just like a meta commentary on how stupid people on both sides are when they spout talking points to each other. So I don't know. Either Ruben Östlund's a super genius, or he just maybe didn't try or didn't land the plane when it came to his commentary on the different political systems that are out there. So what else have you seen that I haven't seen?
Empire of Light.
Oh, see, okay. I was mixed up, I think, last time we did the Fabelmans, because I was like thinking about the Sam Mendes movie, but then I think I said Armageddon Time, which is James Gray's movie. So Armageddon Time is the one that has Anthony Hopkins in it, right? And then you saw Empire of Light, which is Sam Mendes.
Here we go again. No one has ever pronounced it Sam Mendes except for you and I on that one podcast.
No, that's what people. That's how.
Okay, no one.
Okay.
He doesn't say it that way.
He
no one else
doesn't.
says.
Okay.
He does not. It's Sam Mendes.
Good. That's perfect. I love it.
And Empire of Light is his new movie with Olivia Colman. He wrote it. He directed it. It's worth seeing, especially if you're performance driven like I am. I'm not sure how you're going to feel about it. It's lacking something. Not sure what it was. I was completely enthralled during the film, but I literally haven't thought about it again since I saw it. I mean, I have seen interviews with them, and she's so charming and so funny, and then I go, oh yeah, that film. Oh yeah, I remember that scene. Oh, I remember that scene. And I'm not saying that's the film's fault. It's called Empire of Light, and I think he made a choice to make it everything but light and lit up. And it's very dull and very gray and very brown, and it takes place during the 80s on this seaside boardwalk where have you ever seen Quadrophenia? No. By The Who? You ever seen the movie? Do you know the album?
I do know the album, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they made it into a movie, and it's about that kind of mod versus rocker thing that happens, and skinheads issues. There's a young African-American man in this film. Things happen. It's pretty easy to figure out what they're going to be. And I'm glad I saw it because she is, of course, transfixing as she always is. That just proves to me that being natural and just being able to do that acting is a possibility. And she is proof because she doesn't do any research. She doesn't really do much. She learns the lines and shows up. I mean, there's a very famous interview. Well, maybe not famous, but I guess to people who like Olivia Colman, she was being asked about Broadchurch, and they were like, you can cry on, Q. How is that possible? And she was like, it's a show about a dead child who was murdered. Just the subject started to make her tear up. And so the point is that she's like, well, I guess if you have feelings, then you would. Oh, great. I mean, whether or not.
Wait a second. That means that people who can't cry on cue don't, quote unquote, have feelings?
No.
Yeah.
That's not what she's saying. What she's saying is that that's how she can do it. Yeah. That's because it produces that automatically in her. And I get that on some level because we've often talked about, if it's not on the page, it takes a lot to get there. Yeah. The few small things that I've done in community theater have always been extremely well written. So it's been a path that is a little bit, I don't know if it's ever easy, but maybe better because the written word is on the page. So Empire of Light, if she gets nominated, see it. If she doesn't, one day it comes on and you've got nothing else to do, watch it. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about it. Yet another, I mean, Sam Mendes has had a kind of career where he does a small film like this, and then he does something like 1917, and then he does a small film, and then he does a Bond film, and then so it's not unheard of that he's done, because he did Away We Go, which I like that movie, and he's done smaller films, and so it's not unusual. It's not out of his wheelhouse, but I had no idea it was Sam Mendes, writer director, none, until the name came up, and I was like, oh, okay, good. I think we're in good hands. And you are. The way that the story of Olivia Colman's character is a little bit hard to take in just because of what happens. So it might be that too.
So
that might be.
Is it quote unquote like a love letter to film, or is it mainly just like a coming of age story that is somewhat related to movies?
No, yes, / no. So no, it's not
related to movies.
No.
Okay. All right.
They work at a movie theater.
Okay. That's why. That's kind of.
They work at a movie. Yeah, they work at a movie theater, and she's like the house manager, or how. I think it's house manager, and he's a brand new employee, and they find each other because they need each other, and for different reasons, of course. And yeah, no, it's not an ode to the old time way of going to movies. Okay. Although when I looked at that theater, I was like, oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
There was a couple of theaters. There's one in Sacramento called the Tower Theater. I don't even know if it's still there, but it is one of those theaters that's just huge and like not messed, like not screwed around with. And so they've probably all stripped it down or something now, but it was a kind of a movie, like a classic movie theater. And so I loved seeing films there, but especially when I was working on the weekends, and then I had like Thursday and Friday off. So I would go like on a Thursday at 2 p.m. or something, and it'd be like a handful of people in there. So that was awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. But, okay. So if you haven't seen a horror movie this year, you should see Barbarian, because
really
it's legit. I'm not a big horror fan, but I heard enough about Barbarian that I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to know anymore, because any more that I know about it is I'm not gonna like. The one thing that got me somewhat intrigued about it is it was after it came out in the theaters, but there was a thing that popped up on YouTube, and it said Justin Long's new movie, and it looks like a comedy where he's just like driving down the road in a convertible, and he's singing, and then at the end of whatever it was, 30 seconds, it just goes like Barbarian, and it's like, okay, so obviously they're kind of doing a little bait and switch type thing or something, but it's just kind of like, kind of, we've talked about those where it's just like Deadpool did it, where it was like, romantic comedy Deadpool coming out on Valentine's Day, or The Shining, a romp about a young kid who likes to ride his tricycle, that kind of a thing, where it's the bait and switch type of a thing. But this movie is definitely a horror movie, but it has, certain distinct segments to it, but they all are connected and very, it also kind of has, it brings up questions, questioning things that are not specifically horror based, but I think that it really, it delivers on the horror and on all of the things. Like if you've got all the boxes that you need to check for a horror movie, it checks all those boxes, and it does it in a classy way. So I don't know. It's better than it should have been. I'll say that. So, but anything else from you?
I'm not in the mood to see a horror film, but that actually puts me in the frame of mind of maybe I should, because
you can't. No, I mean, if you're not in the mood for a horror movie, do not see it. But because it is, I mean, it's gory, and it is super scary in certain scenes. And then it also, like, I found myself like physically doing the thing that you don't no, like being like, don't do that. Like telling the maid, like, don't do, why are you doing that? You know,
why are you going in there?
Don't go in there.
Yeah.
You
What
know,
is she
why
doing?
Are you leaving that door open? Like, why are you
check under the bed?
Yeah, exactly.
At least do that.
It's all of that. And
well, I texted you that I've seen this, and I was probably going to see Top Gun Maverick, but I haven't because tonight was going to be the night that I saw it. But we decided we decided to do the podcast a day early because of whatever, because we couldn't do it last week. That's why. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, I didn't see Top Gun. Okay, well, I guess there's a reason why we haven't talked about it, like mutually talked about it. You've talked about it, but I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait. No, I did something crazy. Well, not something crazy. I got not bored, but I watched all my Christmas movies that I normally watch, and we've talked about that. And I was like, well, I don't want to watch anything that makes me think too much. Now, I had also just seen The Fabelmans, The Whale, Empire of Light, Glass Onion, thinking movies, you know? So I was like, well, I just want to watch something superhero or whatever. I can watch, Civil War for the umpteenth time. And literally, I think I've created my own number with umpteenth time because I'm sure it's that amount of times that I've seen that film. And for whatever reason, Eternals came by and I was like, click, and I watched it again.
And
I will say what I have said before on multiple viewings. It's not as bad as everybody says it is. It's actually pretty epic when it comes to the superhero stuff. People who say there's too many characters might be right, but Kumar, how do you say his name?
Kumail Nanjiani.
Camille, right. Everybody says, we talked about how he kind of like disappears for the last battle, but he's there it's a 2.5-hour movie. He's there for 2 hours. He literally just disappears for the last 15-minute sequence. But for whatever reason, because he was so electric in it, we think he's been gone for a long period of time. That was interesting. But I don't know. I think it's well done. I think it comes down to a couple of things. We don't know the characters. We don't have a backstory. We don't live in a backstory of, like, everybody knows Captain America, whether or not you know Captain America or not. Everybody knows Batman, whether or not you really know. People know these characters. And I think the uncertainty of not knowing them led to people being less interested in learning about them. You learn a ton of things about each of the character. Angelina Jolie puts in an Oscar-nominatable performance, even though that's more of a compliment than that would have never happened probably. But she's fantastic. Her performance is stunning in that. And I have some issues with how much you get in the first film. You get all 10 of them. You get all their backstories. You get the complications of the deviants. You get the complications of Ajax and her story. And then you get the bait and switch thing that happens. And then you get the real reason why the Eternals are the Eternals and blah, 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 blah. It's a little too much, but it kept me entertained and it kept my mind off the world and it kept me from like wondering what else I should be doing. I hunkered down into it, so I enjoy it.
And I think also maybe like as you see it again, it may, the things you're like, oh, I was expecting this, I was expecting that, and you can be like, no, it does make sense logically that this is going to be the next thing, or that I'm seeing all these characters because for you it's not the first time you've seen those characters,
right?
So I think that's the other thing is that if you compare it to even the other Phase 3 films. Then, or wait, no, it's Phase 4, isn't it? So it's after Endgame. It was after Endgame. So if you even compare it to some of the other Phase 4 films, or the ones at the tail end of Phase 3, like Captain Marvel, like you're only being introduced to a handful of new characters, like just a couple, really.
Right.
And that's the big thing that at least I remember I had, and in you too, I think to a certain extent, where it's just a lot to take in, and we haven't been expected to do that in a movie recently. I mean, even the Avengers, it was a handful of people. And they had already even brought in Hawkeye a little bit, brought in Black Widow for a couple movies. I mean, you can kind of feel them building a team, and then all of a sudden this team gets dropped on you. and you're like, okay, now they're a team. So that was, it's just, if we didn't have anything to compare it to in the Marvel universe, then it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. Because how many movies do we see where it's like, let's get the team together, whatever it is, or even TV shows where they're already together. It's a team. It's like, okay, fine, it's the A team. There's like 6 people. Like, let's get going, But there's probably a reason why a lot of other TV shows don't have 9 people in the show, as the main characters of the show.
Yeah, there's 10.
Yeah.
And so Chloe
Zhao?
What's her? Yes, thank you. The only thing is that, how do you say her last name again? Zhao. That's right. Like, I approve, even though I don't know how to say it right off bat. Anyway, I can't figure out why they chose her. Like, what was it that they saw that she brought to it? That, you have the naturalistic lighting and you have the scenes that are out in real nature and stuff like that, which is really great.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right.
Beautiful.
But it doesn't. Oh, I see why they picked her, because she has this aesthetic. I get that. But what she had to do was kind of polar opposite of what she does, if not polar opposite of what she does, because the first 2 action sequences in that movie are action packed. They're pretty epic.
You slot in a director to handle a lot of those like hero shots or big things, but then also they've got stunt coordinators, they've got second unit directors, and a lot of that stuff is, if they don't have the people above the title in the scene because of stunts or whatever, that's something that a second unit director could potentially take care of. That you can divide and conquer. You can say like, okay, we're going to be here on this set doing these things while you guys are hanging off of buildings over there.
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff is already pre-approved, and she has her thumbprint on it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing, because she can do more than what she has shown us. Not that she hasn't shown us enough.
Yeah, like they gave her a chance. Expand.
And I think it's a shame that it gets as bashed on it as it does, because in about 10 years, people will find their way with that film. And they're going to be like, oh, this is so, because they're going to be so tired of Marvel on so many levels. They're going to say, okay, this is the umpteenth and a half time we've seen Civil War. Not me, them. And let's see, oh yeah, Eternals was good, but it was okay, but at least it will always be fresh to them. It will never be the same characters over and over again. So it's worth seeing. And then I'll tell you my last one, because, so I have seen the Snyder cut of the Justice League, the 4-hour version, twice.
Wow.
Yes. And it's just my world. I love those worlds. Maybe not that world, but I do love those characters, and I have come to appreciate what he was trying to do. And I think that they could have cut a good hour from that film, and they should have gone along with certain things and not changed certain things. J.J. Abrams, right? No. Yes.
No, Zack Snyder.
No.
Joss
Whedon. Right.
Yeah,
I have J.J. Abrams in my head because he's now DC guy. But isn't that who's going to revamp?
No, James Gunn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow, I didn't get any of that right. Wow, you lose. Anyway, my point was that they should have never strayed that far away from what Zack Snyder was doing, because what he was doing was very clever, and they do have character development, and he does base the storyline around Cyborg's storyline and his birth, his death, his birth again, if you will, is all like he's the main focus. And that makes sense because he is the Justice League character that we know the least about, at least the world knows the least about. And so for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but I was flipping through and I was like, Justice League Black and White. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Click. And I ended up watching. It took me 2 nights. I didn't watch it all in one night, but it was pretty fascinating to watch. Now I know the film was not made to, it was made to look black and white. It wasn't filmed in black and white. So I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but it was interesting how when you're not focused on, you said the Flash's suit was red Solo cups. And every time I see it, I think of that. You're not focused on Zach decided to use this color burgundy or ruby red or whatever it was. And when they redid it, they brightened the costume or they didn't do what he originally was doing. You're not focused on that. You're focused on what's in the scene. And also, when you see it in black and white, the CGI, which is probably not up to par with what people are used to for the MCU, it makes it look more like Sin City. And it makes it look like it's purposefully done that way in a comic book style. So the actual things that might pull you out that are CGI, not as well as they could be, are enhanced by the black and white, because your suspension of disbelief, your imagination is, you see a comic book or you see a fictional world. So if something looks a little wonky, it looks fictional because it's a comic book. So I thought that was good.
You're not seeing as far into the frame either, so you can get away with a lot more, I think. Like, which it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure it was a difficulty that Zack Snyder had to accommodate for. He had to figure out a way around certain things because he's dealing with stuff that was shot a long time ago and was never used, and then the CGI for certain things wasn't made, and so he only has a certain amount of money to make the CGI for the different scenes that he's making and putting in there that are different than the Joss Whedon stuff. So you got to kind of pick and choose. And then I think, like you said, going with a bold design choice and going with a bold aesthetic is going to actually help you and give you some patches to put on certain scenes that when you don't have the money to completely start from scratch. So,
and the last thing I'll say about it is how they ever redesigned Steppenwolf from what they were supposed to be doing to what they did. I will never understand it. That, I know you haven't seen it, but his whole armor it's
moving.
Like it has its own life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I have seen it. Yeah, I saw. Man, you don't pay attention to anything that I watch.
That's because I don't love you. I told you that years ago. I'm committed to the podcast. You are insignificant.
Okay, great.
That's terrible. Just even terrible to joke
we'll let you edit the next one.
Wow. That was like not even a second in between. If we were in a movie, we would win Oscars for that moment, because good for you. Good for you.
But I think that, that's where a lot of that money did go, is to Steppenwolf, is to the kind of recreation. And then also the final scene that they have, how it's kind of totally different. So yeah.
It's better.
Yeah, it is better. I agree.
It's like you see the Justice League fighting together. Batman is significant and he's not in the original. I mean, the whole like epic team shot, where it slows down and, Wonder Woman shows up and Aquaman shows up and they're all going towards the tower. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's what we need. But Steppenwolf's, I guess, metal armor is fascinating to me, and it does different things depending on his emotional state. And so how they ever redesigned it to what they got after they redesigned it, I would have walked into a room and said, no, you can't do that. Look at what you had and look at what you've gotten. They're not even the same. They're not even on the same planet. Don't do it.
It's an interesting exercise to watch, because I mean to watch the Whedon version and the Snyder version, and just to see like what you can do, how you can modify something and change it, because it doesn't ever happen really. I know. I mean, I guess the like Richard Donner versions of Superman 2, I guess, that he never got to finish, or I don't know, somehow he got kicked off of Superman 2, I think. He shot a bunch of stuff, but he got kicked off, but then he came back later and
well, he shot a lot of 1 and 2 together.
That's what it was. Okay. So he tried to cobble together something. I don't know. I mean, it's as an academic exercise, it's interesting, but I think that much more past that, it gets a little, I don't know. I'd rather watch a different movie.
The truth of the matter is that as he talks about seeing Glass Onion 3 times, I mean, it just depends on the movie you want to rewatch,
right.
Not necessarily.
You're totally right, because
I get it.
I was looking through the last few years and stuff, and it's like, how many times have I watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? Probably 6. You know, it's like I come back to
It's your thing.
certain movies. Same
Yeah.
like The Nice Guys. I watch.
It's your
watch
thing.
that a lot. So.
Yeah. So I will say this. I think, and I can't believe I'm saying it out loud because it's a little embarrassing, but not quite. I want to watch it again, black and white or the color version, and I want to edit it as I'm watching it. I want to trim certain scenes to see how they flow. Yeah. Not that I know any better than
the
it,
James
but there.
cut.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be funny if that became the definitive cut too?
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can see us on Twitter. Just go to twitter.com/actorengineer, facebook.com/actorandengineer, and we're on YouTube. Search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast, and we'll see you next time.